Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Nice to see you again. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're having a blessed day. Back in December, I went and saw Michael Kenna's Japan show in Portland. It's the first time I'd ever seen his actual work. And it really got me thinking about a lot of things. Now, I had started moving towards film before then, back in November. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I've shot film pretty much my whole life, but for the past 20 years, my main emphasis has been digital. I don't even want to call it digital photography. I mean, that's where I am now. So I've been an aspiring art photographer my whole adult life, really. And for the past, it'll be 20 years now. In 2005, I got my first digital camera. And you know, back then, when digital photography, and I'm at the point where I don't even like that term. Photography was one of the first things to be computerized, okay? And back then, we were all innocent about what computerization would do for us. We only saw the positives. And we still kind of have more of a favorable attitude towards computers. I have a feeling over the next 10 years, that's going to change. It already is to a certain extent. There is a backlash. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, if digital imaging was such the panacea that it is, who would have thought that film would have a resurgence 20 years later? And film is having a resurgence, okay? So, I mean, Leica brought back the M6 and the MP and the MA, and they're actually kind of selling. There's a bigger picture, okay? And I think that right now, as AI becomes more prevalent, people are getting more suspicious. 20 years ago, when digital cameras first came on the scene for still photography, there was no suspicion whatsoever. People were like, this is cool. And everybody quoted Ansel Adams saying, I'm really looking forward to when digital cameras. I'm not so sure he'd be so happy with them when he finally sees what they do at this point. So it really is a matter of degree, right? And what do I mean by that? The digital camera has taken away a lot of the choices that a photographer has to make and has to be correct about in order to make a competent image. Okay, so the photographer is delegating control over the final output to the computer or the engineers who programmed the computer, all right? And most people, I would say, are comfortable with that delegation, all right? But how far can you go with that before people are uncomfortable with that delegation? The point that I'm making is, and we're at the point now with AI, that they could sell you a camera that has an AI computer in it with a data that connects to the internet, that you point your camera at a scene, let's say Mesa Arch at sunrise. So you're at Mesa Arch at sunrise, you could have a camera where you pointed at Mesa Arch at sunrise, it connects to the internet, and the AI makes a composite of the world's greatest images of Mesa Arch at sunrise, and that's your image when you push the shutter button. Is everybody comfortable with that? Because that is the ultimate manifestation of delegating your choices to a computer. All right. Somebody made the comment when I've been making a lot of these existential videos lately, because these are the thoughts that are on my mind and I find it interesting. And I'm not sharing these videos in the sense that I'm trying to preach at you of what's right and wrong. I'm sharing these videos because for me it's a journey. There's no destination, or I'm not at a destination yet. There are no conclusions here. But in this modern era where photography is going through this revolution, when we come out the other side, is it still photography? And those are the questions. I think that's a legitimate question. Somebody said in one of the comments to one of my existential videos, arguing about digital versus film is like painters arguing about watercolors versus oils. I don't think that's correct. Let's say somebody says, I want to be a painter, right? Well, they don't go to the Apple store and buy a computer, a tablet, and a stylus or styluses, right? They go to an art supply store and they buy canvas, oil paints, and brushes. Well, I think it's time to define photography. For me personally, or I'm comfortable, I'll put it this other way. I'm less comfortable defining photography as a digital process. Okay, I think that's a computer simulation of photography. I'm getting less and less comfortable assuming that digital imaging is photography. Okay, I think we need to be more specific in our definitions. I think photography is classic photography of film, chemistry, darkroom printing. All right. I think once you go beyond that, once you digitize it, I think you're into imaging, not photography. Is this important? A lot of people are saying, this isn't important. Well, then you don't want to take this to that level of understanding, and that's fine. Okay, you don't care. You just want to make pretty pictures. Go for it. You be you. You do you, right? But for those of us that are obsessed with the art of photography, I think it's important to make these distinctions, right? Discerning, making judgments, and weeding out, that's what it's all about. That, you know, deciding what's in your photograph, deciding what your art is going to be. What are you portraying? What are you representing? What are you creating? Right? Or how much of the creation process are you going to delegate to a computer? And how much of the creation process are you comfortable delegating to a computer before it's not your art, it's the computer's art? I don't have an answer for that. I do for me personally, I think, in the sense that I'm getting less and less comfortable delegating the creation of my art to a computer. Right? I'm really headed back to, and I'm not even comfortable with like automated film cameras. All right. I mean, I think that, like for me personally, I mean, they just get in the way. I mean, I'd rather have a Nikon F3 than a Nikon F100. I'd rather have a Pentax LX than a Pentax MZS. Okay. I mean, and I'm really getting to the point where I want a mechanical camera, and I will take the modern convenience, modern circa 1980, maybe really 1965. I will take the modern convenience from 50 to 70 years ago of having a basic light meter in the camera, because that gives me an idea where I'm at, and then I can make the decision as to where I want my exposure to be based off of that. And it's very simple. And it's much easier photography, believe it or not. Okay. It's much easier to have the control over the process from years of experience and like, in other words, get out of my way. I know what I want to do. I know how to interpret the scene. I know how to create the art that I want to create. And it's more fun, more satisfying, and more rewarding. I mean, that's where I'm at. And now that I've really seen that the emperor doesn't have any clothes on, for me personally, like I have no desire whatsoever to photograph anything with a digital camera right now, subject to change. But the more it started slowly, right? I started doubting. I've never been comfortable with digital. That's why I've tried all these different systems. Well, it's always been in the back of my mind, well, maybe if I go full frame, well, maybe if I do this, well, maybe if I do that. And you know, every time, like, and I guess the final nail in the coffin was like, where am I going to go next? Digital medium format? Yeah, that's going to do it. No, it's not, because I'm totally satisfied with 400 speed 35 millimeter film in a Leica. Like, I'm totally satisfied with the results that I'm getting from those cameras. I'm totally satisfied with 400 speed film in my Pentax LX. So it's not the Leica, okay? But I enjoyed shooting the LX so much that I said, you know, I think I'd really enjoy a Leica. And so I picked one up, and I love it, right? And I love it because it's even simpler than the LX. It gets out of the way even more than the LX does. So I'm fully satisfied with the output. Not just satisfied. It ignites that creative fire. When I see the results, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's photography. And I've never really said that about digital. It's always been like, it's sort of photography. I mean, it's the difference, kind of, for me, between having a real girlfriend or wife and a robot girlfriend and wife. You know, the robot girlfriend and wife, you can program it to not give you a hard time and not aggravate you. But it's not really the same thing, is it? Right? I mean, you know, can you really love a robot? That's too weird. But my point is like, yeah, your wife or your girlfriend drives you nuts sometimes, most of the time maybe, but you wouldn't have it any other way, right? And film photography can be very frustrating at times, but you wouldn't have it any other way, would you? Because the end result is real, not a computer simulation thereof. Well, now I'm going into what my conclusions are for me, and not conclusions, but like where I'm at right now. It's, you know, I go out and I'm testing a camera and I'm testing a film and I'm just running and gunning and snapshotting and trying to make the best compositions I can and not really taking the images seriously. And 2 people in my last video comment, this is the best work we've ever seen you do. Really? Well, it's not the compositions. It's not the subject matter. It has to be the intrinsic and inherent nature of film photography that resonates with people's psyche. It does with mine. And if you know what you're looking for, you'll see it clearly. Right? And it's not about being the sharpest or the clearest or the least amount of noise. As a matter of fact, it's got nothing to do with that. There's something about film photography with its grain and its warts and everything that just resonates with people. Maybe it's conditioning from the 20th century of this is what people expect it to look like, right? I don't know. I mean, a friend of mine who's really an audiophile, he said that in some of the digital remastering, they have to add the pops and the clicks to make it more realistic. I don't know how, you know, for audio. And I don't know how accurate that is. But I do know that there are a lot of art photographers that are going back and adding fake grain to their digital images. This is mainly, I'm talking about black and white, because if I were a color photographer, like I probably wouldn't shoot film. Like digital works for color for me, but then again, for me, color's never been art, okay? As Ansel Adams said, it has pictorial quality and recording quality and documentary quality, but there isn't an artistic interpretation in color photography, and to a certain extent, it's either right or it's wrong. I mean, there's some photographers that have presets. That's another thing that drives me nuts. Why the hell would I want to preset it and make all my photographs look like some other schmuck on the internet's photographs? Makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't get that. I mean, the Michael Kenna preset. That's That just doesn't make any sense at all to me. Whatever, you know. I want my photographs to be technically as excellent as Michael Kenna's prints are. But the artistic merit of Michael Kenna's prints, clearly they're printed by a master printer, but it's the composition, it's the subject matter, it's the interpretation that Michael Kenna puts into the prints that is Michael Kenna. Okay, I can go photograph the same things with a Hasselblad and with the film Michael Tri-X 400, and I can go in the darkroom and Michael Kenna and I could both go out at the same time and photograph the same thing. And when we're done in the darkroom, our prints are not going to look the same. Now, if we both had Sony A7 R5s with the same lenses, the photographs are going to be more homogenized because you're letting the computer do a lot of the lifting. Not just, even if you put them into manual mode, it's the way the engineers designed the sensor to capture the scene. Now, you could argue to a certain extent that that's the same thing with how the engineers interpreted the film, but or designed the film, but the engineers don't have control over how you're going to process it. They don't have control over how you're going to process the print. They don't have control over how you're going to expose the print or expose the film. They don't have control over what developer you use, what dilution you're going to use. These are all huge choices that severely impact the final product. Okay, and in a digital camera, that's been mostly homogenized. You know, they give you the illusion of more control on the software side of the post-processing software, but really, it's still homogenized. It's not the same thing. This is somebody that's been doing both for a long time and banging my head against the wall with digital photography, trying to make it like my interpretation and deviate from what the computer is forcing me to make. The computer wants you to make the perfect print because that's the goal of the engineer. What about my goals as the artist? All right, I've banged on long enough. I think you guys get the idea where I'm coming from. Controversial topic in the sense that, like, you know, every time someone comes along and says the emperor doesn't have clothes on, all the people in the crowd, instead of admitting it or thinking about it or possibly questioning whether it's true, which is not human nature. What human nature is homeostasis. What human nature is to go along with the herd. Okay, what human nature is to defend your turf in terms of if you spent 10 grand on digital cameras, you're not going to like this video at all because this is questioning your decisions. Digital cameras have their place, but from a fine art perspective, and we can have a whole video talking about what we think the definitions of that is. But from a fine art perspective, in the sense of like Michael Kenna, Ansel Adams, I don't think digital photography is digital photography. I think it's digital imaging. I think photography is not digital. Just as putting splotches of color on a tablet with a stylus on a screen is not painting. So these are the things I'm thinking about. Clearly, it's a personality disorder. I totally get that. So enough of that. So things that are coming up. We have a new photo adventure vehicle, which is going to be very exciting. It is, right now, we purchased it, but it is on a boat coming from Mexico, which is where they make these things these days. And we purchased it sight unseen, and we had to do that because they're very rare, which is ridiculous, and they're kind of hard to transport. And people really like them who know. I've been doing a lot of research. This is weird. Everybody says, oh, they're terrible. And those are people who've never had one or have no experience with them. And then everyone who I've seen reviews and things who's had one thinks they're the best thing ever. So I'm really looking forward to that. Should be here within 2 to 4 or 6 weeks. There's no delivery date yet because it's, like I said, it's on a boat. And it's why they're shipping it on a boat from Mexico. That doesn't make any sense. Just put it on a train or a flatbed, but whatever. But it's a much more convenient vehicle for photographing in. And so there is that. So that's exciting. What else? That's it. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Please subscribe. I don't bang on enough about subscribing on this channel, and I should. The channels with more subscribers, every 10 seconds they're putting in a thing with subscribe. Today's a waffle day, clearly. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Said it twice in this video. Check out my book on my website. Check out my website. And check out my Patreon channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you out there. Have a great one. Bye.